Conan has a code. Conan is a deep character. He is something that we do want to aspire and relate to.
Hey, you Stygian dogs. Welcome to part 5 of a conversation with Conan's compatriots Steve Saffel and Brian D. Anderson. In this segment, topics include cultural representation and diversity, with alien author Alex White and the Expanse series as examples of doing it right. We talk about Brian's The Bard's Blade and Conan the Child, releasing December 26th from Titan Books. And Steve and Brian speak about pleasing the Conan reader. You can't please everyone. And lastly, seeing ourselves as the protagonist.
Cain is interesting because he's a man out of his world.
Yeah.
And having to deal with things that are completely outside of the realm you would think he would live in.
Yeah, I would have been. I've read Solomon Kane stories. I read some of that, and the reason I didn't submit any is because I was a little nervous. To be honest with you.
Yeah,
I got writing a modern version of a Puritan in Africa. I'm like, ooh, there's a tightrope walk I did not feel like getting on top of, man. You know, I mean, it was just, I mean, the ways that could go sideways.
But on the other hand, that could be a phenomenal story, and in a way, I would like to. I would find it fascinating to see a story co-written by an African diaspora author, because I think if you took Cain genuinely into those lands, it might be Africa, it might be Asia. Again, remember the film that my grandparents made that was actually the priestess of the snake sequence was in what was then Burma. And the fact is that if you could take these characters without changing the characters necessarily, but take them into these really amazing places, that could be incredible, because then you get real.
Well, it could, but I you know, what was in my head was the fact that we're talking an 18th century Puritan. You know, you have to. He's going to have a certain worldview when meeting, not just because of the color of the skin of the people he's encountering, but also the gods that they worship.
Well, that's the thing, is what I'm saying is that for example, if someone like you, or even someone like you, because you know the church ways of the Deep South, if someone like you co-wrote something with an African diaspora author, and to be perfectly honest, while I wouldn't mind a really good African American author, I would even be more interested in, for example, a Nigerian author or an author from Mali or something. And
I'd have to do it with somebody like that, because if I did it otherwise and I got anything wrong, that'd be the end of my career. You know, is that what?
I'll tell you, here's another thing that can be done, and this can be more hazardous. And that is, there was an alien novel that Alex White did called Into Charybdis. Into Charybdis features a planet that basically future Iran has purchased this planet to set up a data mining facility. And it turns out that they bought the facility that had been owned by Weyland-Yutani. But the facility is now populated entirely by Persian Persian staff members. And a group of technicians, basically an IT team, is brought in to help them with something that's going wrong with their tech. And but this is a team who's not Persian, encountering a Persian group. So Alex actually hired a Persian fact checker and sensitivity reader to make certain that the Persian culture is properly represented in this book. And that makes it all the more dramatic, because it makes the contrast so much richer.
Yeah. I tell you who does an excellent job at that. Is the Expanse.
Okay.
The Expanse to me is the way you write diversity. Um, in number one, in a realistic fashion. Also, because they had gay characters, trans characters, characters of every color, but that was the least interesting thing about that character. You know, what I mean, their characters were so rich, and the world was so rich, and everybody, had their own little own little subgroup of each subgroup, and you're talking what 200, 300, 400, whatever, however many years in the future. The way the people even just looked seemed realistic, that there was so many people had mixed together for so long that there was really that wasn't just no longer was an important thing anymore.
Yeah, it was just a thing. It was just the state of things.
It was that's one of the things I enjoyed about the way they wrote the future diversity. Now I understand exactly what you're saying. If I were going to write a specific culture, you definitely want to you definitely don't want to piss off a whole group, because we've seen what happens when you get it wrong, and you see I mean and I wouldn't want to intentionally hurt anybody,
but I'm also talking about there's a flip side to that, because you can be worried about hurting somebody until the cows come home. But to be perfectly honest, one of the most important things to me is to get into the richness of the concepts in a way that transports the reader to places that they never could have gone otherwise. And one of the best ways a writer can do that is by having an ensemble cast, because with an ensemble cast, you can do a lot with a lot of different characters. But I think Alex's use of a sensitivity reader really worked.
Yeah. Actually, I had Alex. My son runs this organization called The Cove. I've talked to you about it, where we bring authors out to different Comic-Cons and stuff like that. Alex was with us in Boston and in Chicago, and those Alien books did very, very well. Now, it was important to know that. I don't know. Did Alex put in, because Alex is trans? I didn't know if Alex put any trans characters in any of the Alien books.
Well, there's an interesting aspect of that, because the character Blue, if you look at the character Blue, there are layers to Blue that are not obvious, but are really interesting. So if you go back and read the novel, look at Blue with a different set of eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I actually had a conversation after the show we were doing, all the authors, we all got together for, drinks and barbecue and all that. And we were talking, I was like, no, there's certain characters or certain cultures I don't write. And it's not because I'm not willing to, is I look at the cost benefit, I have to weigh that equation. Is it worth me going through hell to add this into my books? And it's a shame that I have to take that into consideration. Now, that's one of the beauty parts about Conan, is I don't have to be as careful. I can write Conan. I don't have, and in these secondary worlds, you can tackle issues like racism, bigotry, and stuff like that without actually using modern versions of that. In my very first series, the Godling Chronicles, I tackle that kind of I tackle racism with actual races of people, not elves versus humans.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but if I do anything in any sort of modern sense, and I have to be very, very careful with Conan. I love writing that manly man hero. He is such a badass, and he is so fun to, I almost feel like I'm him as I'm writing him into a situation. and it is so much fun to explore that character, especially when you can, like what I did, like with that one story, and wrote him as a younger man, then wrote him how would he be 10 years later. You know, I mean, and that I don't have to be as, I don't have to have a lot of, worried as much about being sensitive, unless I'm going to the southern areas where, um, where there's like black people of the tribes that where he put black people, and I have to be a little more considerate of that than I normally would. But with women, I write women. Half my audience are female, and they love the way I write women. I write strong women, and I don't take women and make them into men and call them strong females. I celebrate femininity as much as I do their strength.
Yeah,
that was what that was one of the things I really appreciated about the Bard's Blade. And the other thing about that too was that I feel, so I have a 12-year-old daughter. I feel like I could give this to her. She would eat it up. There was nothing in there that I would have any concern about. Male protagonist, female protagonist. Like it just worked. It was such a good choice. And I appreciate that, because it's like,
there's a funny story behind that. Shimmy, which is one of the characters, he's the uncle, and Shimmy's a homosexual. Now, you don't know this in book one because of an accidental edit. Now, if anybody knows tour books would not take out homosexual just willy-nilly just because they didn't want them to be in the story. They're not like that.
Right.
So Shimmy is gay, but you don't know it except for this one little paragraph that I put in. The only reason I put it in there because it was going to be important in book two, that he does have a relationship. There's all the sex in those books are all fade to black. So there's no, it's not, I had some people get pissed off in the second book when they find out Shimmy's gay, that all of a sudden I have an agenda. I'm like, there's like 20 characters. One of them's gay. How is that an agenda? So, but in book one, the only other gay person gets brutally murdered. So,
yes.
So I started getting a couple of reviews going, what the hell, man? The only gay people in here get just slaughtered. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It says clearly that Shimmy's gay. So I go back through the beginning of the book. I'm like, oh shit, they edited that out. And it was a complete accident. So I'm like, and that was the only time I've ever in 10 years ever responded to reviews, and I had to explain. Because I was in a panic. I was like, in book two, it's going to look like I'm pandering, and I'm not. Right. This character was always this way. You know what I mean? And I'm not pandering. I'm not like backtracking, going, oops, I forgot to put a gay character. I didn't forget that Shimmy always came across to me as a gay character. And so, but it looks like it looks like I brutally murder the gay people, and then get embarrassed about it and add them in book two.
Thank God we don't live in a world that believes in conspiracy theories.
All right. But I didn't get just one. I got like at least half a dozen or so pissed off reviews about that, and like I said, one of the rules of thumb is you don't respond to reviews, good or bad. I mean,
that's people just thinking too hard about something that's not.
Well, you're going to start an online storm that you cannot win. You can't. The authors never win those fights. And you see a lot of times especially with indies and who are just people who hadn't developed a thick skin. I mean, I'm sure when The Child comes out, I'm going to have people who absolutely love it. There's going to be people who think that I'm the worst thing, that I'm the worst thing that ever happened to the Conan world. They're going to hate me. And everybody has the right to their opinion. And
hopefully you'll be able to sleep at night.
I'll sleep just fine, because there's not. I've been called, when you're a writer, and you know this way better than I do, Steve. Personal attacks, personally. People make judgments on who I am based on my stories, my fictional stories. I'm like, in one instance, I've been called that I support the abuse of women because the villain abused a woman. I don't show the abuse; I just say that it happened. That I'm promoting that. In the Godling Chronicles, I get reviews saying that I am shilling for the Christian right and that I'm anti-Christian. Same books. So
Yeah.
Conan's going to come out, and there's going to be people go, "Oh, this was wonderful." There's people going to say, "What?" That I have no business ever typing another word.
Well, it's like we were saying before Steve joined us, though, that I mean, you're going to have those detractors, but in order to ensure the continuity of the character, those people have to be challenged, and you can't you're not going to appeal to the real strict, Howard zealots because they're there, and so if they expect every word you to write to be Robert E. Howard, it's not going to happen. And if you want to grow the character, or at least have an appeal, you have to do something new.
We
It's
need to
still
have a
Conan,
seance.
but
That's the only way we're getting
I,
anything else out of Howard.
I don't
yeah,
think I don't think there's anything in the child that is going to cause you to get much flack. But I will say that I think that you threw in some nice twists and turns that will cause people to enjoy the story. And,
Well,
damn you if you dare to entertain people.
yeah.
yeah. Well, the thing is if people are going to find something. We've got into this grievance culture where everybody finds something to complain about, no matter what it is, and they're gonna, everything is taken so very personally, and you know what, the hardcore Conan fans that we were just discussing that are going to hate me just because I dared to write in the Conan world. That I have no problem with those guys. We need those guys. We need those guys to carry that torch to keep Conan alive.
That's true too.
I mean, I can't hate on them for not liking what I do. That's
However,
their
I
right.
challenge them. I challenge them to help us expand the audience because I do believe the Conan audience is much smaller today than it has been in decades. And I believe that it can be much, much greater thanks to things like Lord of the Rings, The Witcher,
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones. And the fact is that if these people genuinely love Howard's work and Conan's work, they will go out and help us to reach new readers. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I think we need complex stories that challenge the reader and bring them to new and wonderful and exotic places, because I think that we have the ability to reach thousands and thousands of new people. And I challenge the genuine Conan fan to prove that they are genuine Conan fans and help us to spread the word.
I agree. And the things I think the world right now is thirsty for a hero like Conan. I mean, some who just the type of character he is it just is so good in so many complex ways. And I think with the right push, it could that Conan could be again as popular as he was, and at the height of the '80s during the aftermath of the Schwarzenegger movie, which
I
I
would
think was
yeah,
the height of his popularity was during that time.
I would hazard the statement that if you were to look at King Conan and Ned Stark from Game
Mm-hmm.
of Thrones, you have two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Ned Stark was my favorite character, probably other than Jon Snow. Ned Stark was my favorite character for a lot of the reasons you just described. And I would like to see the people who love that kind of character, a character with such incredible strength of character that they're willing to be beheaded for it.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah. I
I
mean,
think Conan could very easily be placed in that same category.
oh, I agree. I mean, he was people think Conan was not the things that people think Conan is. He often wasn't. Like Conan was fearless. No, he wasn't. Conan felt fear. He says so outright that he was things that he was afraid of.
And always
That
the
made him afraid.
supernatural.
But
Always
Conan
the sorcerer.
would overcome his fear. He would not let it rule him. He was just very complicated. But I wouldn't call him good in the sense that like a Mother Teresa type good, but he was definitely a type of hero.
He was a man with a code.
Yes. I mean, and he didn't care. With that one scene that we were talking about it before you got on, before we started recording that. I forget the story where the queen says the next person you see, the gods tell the next person you see is going to command your armies, and she sees Conan, of course, and Conan, he he actually becomes the leader of this group of people who they feel that he betrayed them, but he rides down when they're being defeated and attacked. He rides down amongst them to save them, despite the fact that they're going to kill him. He goes and says, "No, I can't run from these people. I'm their leader. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. I'm going to go face them." And he faces it down and arises victorious.
Right.
And he is just that kind of guy. He, like I said, he has a code and he's gonna live by it. And I think that kind of hero is timeless. I mean, there's something. What a lot of people, if you're going to write in this genre, in the fantasy or any kind of fictional genre, and you're writing a protagonist, what you got to realize is if you want people to relate to that character, they have to have attributes that you would like to see reflected in yourself, and they don't necessarily have to exhibit those attributes in real life, but you have to have that desire. I wish I could be that honest. I wish I could be that strong. And then you see this character, and sometimes it even inspire you to be more like that character. And I think that's one of the beauty parts about what we do, about what we create, what Howard created, what a lot of characters. One of my favorites was Terry Brooks and the Magic Kingdom for Sale. He took a middle-aged lawyer and made a hero out of it.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to think that why do you think everybody relates so well to Luke Skywalker? Because he starts out innocent, whiny, weak, gets his ass kicked over and over again until he finally becomes something great. And to me, look, we were talking about aliens. Best protagonist ever is Ripley. Just a normal person, just a normal part of the crew, nothing exceptional, nothing terrible, just a competent member of a crew who finds this inner strength and courage against a foe she cannot contend with physically, and finds it. And then the second one's even better. She even has this protective instinct with Newt. Arguably one of the best protagonists, but we all like to want to see that in ourselves. And we want to think that we would have that kind of courage, that we would be that kind of person. And there is so many aspects to Conan that I would love to think that if I had the muscle and the brain and could speak a gajillion languages and wield a sword, that I would be like Conan. That I would, and if I wouldn't, I sure the hell would want to be.
And I think that captures the ultimate appeal of the character. I mean, that's why. That's why.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's fantasy characters that there's characters that don't need depth. James Bond, I don't like what they did with James Bond because, and I understand if people disagree, it's fine if they do. But James Bond, they tried to give him backstories and histories and depth. James Bond doesn't need depth. James Bond is male fantasy. Giving James Bond depth is giving Lara Croft depth. She's rich, she's hot, she's a badass. That's all you need to know. You don't those characters are meant for fun. They are meant for nothing but fun. They are a bag of chips. They are not a meal. They are something that you enjoy. It's everybody wants to be the dashing spy like James Bond. He doesn't need flaws. He doesn't need depth, because that's not why you're watching them. They have the female version of that in Laura Croft. She's rich. She's hot. She's daring. She's a badass. She doesn't need to have a secret dark past where she was abused by her uncle or whatever crazy shit somebody would come up with. Conan is different. Conan had, like Steve said, Conan has a code. Conan is a deep character. He is something that we do want to aspire and relate to.
Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing, and join me for the final part 6 of a conversation with Conan's compatriots, Steve Saffel and Brian D. Anderson. And until next time, take it easy, you Stygian dogs.